we could continue talking about quantum mechanics all day, and I'm happy to do that. But I also think we should talk about the primacy of doubt. And you already mentioned Lorenz and the geometry of chaos, and I understand that it underpins the butterfly effect, which has dramatic consequences in our lives everywhere from meteorology to finance to the entire solar system. And I guess what I'm wondering is if you could explain maybe how this emerges out of the n-body problem, which is, I think, where it begins in the primacy of doubt, and then why you find the geometry of chaos to be, as you put it, every bit as significant as relativity or quantum mechanics, which is surprising just because I hadn't heard about it before the book.
Yeah, I mean, of course, this concept of the butterfly effect is not new, and in fact,
it comes from Lorenz, doesn't it?
Well, okay. I mean, it actually does go back to probably. I mean, it does go back to Poincaré, Henri Poincaré, French mathematical physicist, who was the one actually who realized that the three-body gravitational problem was chaotic. I'll come back to that, but let me just say, in the 1980s, I think it was, James Glick wrote a very masterful book on chaos. And the words, the butterfly effect, I think was coined by Glick to describe it. I think it was the opening chapter of his book. So, from the 1980s onwards, I mean, people, in general, the public has known about this notion of the butterfly effect. And, there have been movies kind of illustrating the concept. The one that comes to mind was the one with Gwyneth Paltrow, I think. I think it was called Sliding Doors or something, and it was based in London. And she was going back to her apartment to see her boyfriend, and the doors of the underground, the metro train, were just shutting, and in one universe, she just squeezed through the doors. And I think in the parallel universe, she just missed the train. So that's the butterfly, whether you got through the doors or didn't get through the doors. But basically, I'm sort of struggling to remember the movie because it was years ago when I first watched it. But the one where she caught the train, she got back to the flat before her partner had got rid of her of the girlfriend that he'd had in bed at the time, illicitly, which led to the relationship breaking up and all sorts of, initially bad and then I think good things happening, as opposed to the universe where she just missed the train and the third girlfriend had actually slipped out of the flat, so she didn't spot her, and that sort of led to a different life. So that's kind of manifestation of the butterfly effect. Small things lead to big things. The reason, though, I wrote about it in the book was less to kind of go over that ground, which I think Glick does as well as anybody. So I was kind of, I did actually, I mean, obviously I had to describe some of that thing, but what I really wanted to bring out was something which is less well discussed, which is when you have these chaotic systems where the butterfly effect has an impact. It's not always that the butterfly actually has a big impact. And I cited the famous poem at the beginning of the book that, for want of a nail the shoe was lost, the horseshoe was lost, and for want of a horseshoe, the horse was lost, and for want of the horse, the rider was lost, and then the battle was lost, and kingdom was lost, and everything. Well, of course, the point is that most of the time, when horses lost horseshoe nails, kingdoms weren't lost. It's only sometimes they were. And we see that really over and over again. And it's a feature of, we see it in the economy. The economy kind of goes along very, very nicely for a long time, and everyone's super happy, and inflation is low, and GDP is reasonable, and everything like that. And then suddenly, kind of out of nowhere, we either get a big crash or some, big spike in inflation, which hadn't been predicted. Our health, global health, we get outbreaks of disease in place to place, but by and large, global health has been sort of fairly stable until, of course, a couple of years ago, COVID hit us all. And this actually does go back to Poincaré. And he, the idea that, what he realized was that we take the motion of the planets around the sun as sort of given clockwork almost. It's something you literally set your clock to because it's so reliable. But what he showed was that from time to time, you can get these periods of extreme instability where small changes could actually lead to something really violent, like, potentially the Earth getting ejected from the solar system. We don't actually think that's likely to happen anytime soon, so shouldn't panic about it. But and this is the point, and the weather is the same. Forecasting the weather, a lot of the time it's fairly routine, and we can make good forecasts of exactly what it's going to be like, a week ahead, 10 days ahead. But then suddenly, out of nowhere, a weather event occurs which is completely, unpredicted, even a couple of days into the future. So that's the point I wanted to make in the book, that chaos is more than just things becoming unpredictable. It's about this notion of unpredictability being very intermittent. It's something which, you can get very complacent about with a system like the economy, or maybe even like the solar system, and say, oh yeah, it's very predictable, everything's fine, don't have to worry about anything. And then suddenly it comes along and bites you. And the question is, how can we deal with that situation of intermittent instability? And that's what a lot of the book is about, that